Okay, this is now 3S, and we're going to get into the parallel feature, how we can fingerprint what Bible Christ is thinking of when he talks. And to do that, we're going to have to start on the left-hand side of the screen, because this is the psalm he's talking about, and I'm going to walk you through how we know. Now, when this particular episode 3 got started in 3A, I took you down to verse 42 on the right-hand side. That's John 8. I had started episode 3 right here. Okay? And we're going to be talking about that in this section of the video. Hopefully I'll get to it before 20 minutes have passed so that you don't fall asleep. But that was my starting point, and that's where we're going to hopefully end up in this 3S increment. But we'll see if we get that far. So again, on the right-hand side of the screen, you've got John 8. We're going to stick mostly to English. And on the left-hand side, Psalm 18 is what he's talking about. And here's how we know. Now, keep looking at the right and the left as I talk. This is pretty straightforward, but it's just that you've not noticed this before, you've not thought of it before. There are no scholars who have talked about it before, so I have to kind of go slow. But it's not hard to understand, really. It's just a question of noticing. Okay, first we start out. I'm not going to cover too many things about mistranslation, because it's good enough for what I want to do here. For the choir director, that means it's a song that the choir director is going to be processing after David's dead. And then it's just of David. The meaning, a psalm means a song. That's not in the Hebrew, okay? This is about, this word of here really means about David, the servant of the Lord, who spoke to the Lord the words of this song on the day that the Lord delivered him. Deliver, save is the same word in Hebrew and Greek, and it's got the same connotation in English too. On the day that the Lord delivered him from what? From the hand of all of his enemies and from the hand of Saul. That means that this was during the time that David was running around. Saul was chasing him, trying to kill him. And during the time that he was running around, he'd gotten married to Saul's daughter, and then Saul was going to kill him, so he escapes through the window with the daughter's help. And now he's sort of running around, and Saul's chasing him. At the same time, there's a sort of splitting of the nation going on with people going to David instead of Saul, but David refuses to fight Saul. And what David's doing instead is sometimes he's pretending to befriend the Philistines in order to avenge one group of Philistines' enemies against another group, because what he's trying to do is get rid of all of them. He's trying to defend Israel and at the same time not fight Saul. But Saul's chasing him all over Israel. So when that ended, which was at the Battle of Mount Gilboa, after the Battle of Mount Gilboa, David created this psalm. That's real important, because that's the setting for John 8. Now I'm going to go over now to John 8 so you can see the parallel. Okay? He's in the temple. The people were coming to him, and he began to teach them. Now what happens? The scribes and the Pharisees brought a woman caught in adultery, and they bring her in the center. Now, who are the scribes and the Pharisees? They are the enemies of Christ. Okay, they've been the enemies. The context for John 8 starts in John 5:17. They were looking for a way to stone him ever since John 5:17. Just read John 5:17 through to this chapter to read yourself into the picture. The arguments in John 8 are the same in John 6 and 7. Okay, they are trying to hone in on the same points. So at this point there's a showdown. All right? In John 6 and 7, you have miracles of the bread and all this other good stuff. Actually, it's because of the bread that he gets into so much trouble. And so the scribes and the Pharisees are playing the role of Saul. It's like civil war, Jew against Jew, all right? So that's the parallel. And what they're trying to do is bait him. Woman caught in adultery. Well, Saul was doing a lot of the same thing. Saul would run around and try and kill David, and then David would do something like sneak into the cave where Saul was taking a dump and take part of his cloak off and say, see, I could have killed you, but I don't want to do that. Why are you chasing me? Okay? So Saul was persecuting David for years. The scribes and the Pharisees at this point, this is about the beginning of the third year or the end of the third year of his ministry, near it. And they've been chasing him for years, trying to persecute him. So that's the parallel. All right? But they're using a woman. They're using somebody else. Saul was always using pretexts to get at David. And for a long time, it was Jonathan, David's best friend, who was Saul's son. But Saul's dead at this point when David writes. Okay? And it's David's personal psalm. The scribes and Pharisees are trying to catch him. All right? Now, that's the first thing that you notice. Back here in the psalm, it begins with David saying, I love you, O Lord, my strength. My strength, my rock, my fortress, and my deliverer. Savior, deliverer is the same idea. My God, my rock, in whom I take refuge. My stronghold. You see all those synonyms? He's repeating himself. Strength, rock, stronghold. Now, stronghold has two meanings. You can be in a stronghold that's the stronghold of your enemy, or you can be inside a stronghold that your enemy can't get in. You with me on that? And in either event, a stronghold is like a castle, a fortress. It surrounds you. You got that? You are surrounded. When you are in a room, you are surrounded by the room. If the room is the room of your enemy, then you're surrounded by your enemy. You're trapped. And that's exactly what's going on here, is they're trying to trap him and they're surrounding him, see? He's got all these people coming to him to teach them. So he's in the center, they're all around. The scribes are bringing her into the center where he is. So he is surrounded by scribes, Pharisees, the crowd. So his enemies are there. He's in enemy territory. All right? Because they're out to get him, and this is the territory they have, oversight. The scribes and the Pharisees have charge of the temple. And so it's a real dicey situation. Because the temple guards are there, the Romans are there, more at a distance. They're not inside the temple exactly. They're inside maybe the outer part of it, but they're not inside where only Jews can go. You have to be a believer to be in the very, very center of the temple. All right? He is surrounded. And yet he's also in the stronghold of the temple. The temple depicts Christ. So you see the double play there? So both blue outlines are a parallel. And it starts out in the same way. First at the beginning, this is telling you why he wrote the psalm. And then it opens with being surrounded in a stronghold. It's a question of the stronghold being for you or against you. And of course, David on the left-hand side is treating stronghold as, well, God is my stronghold even when I'm in the midst of my enemies. We all know that from what's upcoming in Psalm 23. Okay? So we have a parallel situation going on here from the very beginning. And they don't believe in him, so they call him rabbi, teacher. You with me? This is their accusation. They are having an opening salvo. They're firing a shot at him. Okay, so what is he doing in his soul? I call upon the Lord, who is worthy to be praised. I am saved from my enemies. He's saying that in advance. Okay, we're back again. I had a computer snafu. All right, what I was saying is that here he is, he's in the midst of his enemies, and they're accusing him right there. And he's therefore, surrounded, but he's also in the stronghold, of faith. Christ had to have his own faith. He had to believe himself. All right? So what is he doing? I call upon the Lord who's worthy to be praised. I am saved from my enemies. And many types of salvation. When you read the Bible, you have to be careful to identify which kind of salvation is in view. Just as in English, you can save money or you can be saved to heaven. When you say I am saved or I saved or I am rescued, you have to say from what? What kind? So Christ is thinking this when they are saying this. He's surrounded, and yet he's in his own stronghold. The temple depicts him, and yet he's in enemy territory. Okay? And he knows why they're doing it. Okay? And he's not defending himself. What is he doing? He's calling upon the Lord in his mind. Okay? Now, here's where we get the reference to him being ensnared. See, he's in the middle of all these people who want him stoned since John 5:17. You have to know the context going back that far. The cords of death encompassed me, the torrents of ungodliness terrified me. Okay? He's experiencing the pressure. And he's admitting in his mind what's going on. He's claiming this psalm as he talks. Okay? We're going to see more about why we know that as we go along. Just sort of take it, just absorb what I'm saying right now. Because the way you fingerprint a thing, it's not just one or two or three things that are in common. It's like 16 things in common. And then you say, oh, well, see, obviously it's pointing to this. It's kind of like GPS on your cell phone. All right? So they're testing him. What do you say? And he's thinking, I'm calling on the Lord. I'm surrounded by my enemies, the Pharisees and the scribes trying to trap me. This is all going on. They're surrounding me. The snares of death confronted me. See, the snares of death confronted me. In my distress, I call upon the Lord and I cry to God for my help. Okay. So that's between the Pharisees and Christ. Okay, but he's not the only one being attacked. The other person is the woman caught in adultery being attacked. She's being surrounded. They've got stones. They want to stone her. Okay, and she is a believer. So she too is thinking, God will protect me. God will protect me. I love you, O my Lord, my strength, my rock. I'm being surrounded, terrified. I'm about to be killed by stones. In my distress, I called upon the Lord. Okay, she's in the same situation. Whether she's actually thinking of these verses, I'm not sure. But she's definitely in the same situation. All right? I mean, that's technically what's going on. They brought her in the center and they got stones and they want to use her and stone her. And they're trying to trap him into saying, yeah, you've got to stone her. So this is her situation right here. So the Pharisees and the scribes are doing this to her and to him. And she's not saying anything. She's just, she's sitting there waiting. In my distress, I call upon the Lord. I'm sure she's thinking about it, but definitely he is. All right? So that's the situation. David had been surrounded by his enemies. And this is a psalm about David being delivered from his enemies, including Saul. Saul is now dead at the Battle of Mount Gilboa. All right? That's the parallel. All right, now, But Jesus stooped down and with his finger wrote on the ground. Stoop down is what we're going to look at next. That's verse 7 here. The earth shook and quaked. Foundations of the mountains were trembling because he was angry. In other words, this is God's anointed is being accused. Smoke went up from his nostrils. These are all judgment metaphors. And fire from his mouth devoured. Coals were kindled by it. This is the heat of judgment. And here we go. He bowed the heavens also and came down. See? He stooped down. Now it's getting narrower and narrower. It's going to get harder and harder for you to find a Bible passage that parallels this better than Psalm 18. It's going to even get closer as we go through it. He stooped down and with his finger, God's finger, okay, here's God's nostrils, that's an anthropopathism, okay, bowed the heavens and came down. Stooped down, came down. Bowed the heavens, stooped down. He's bending to the ground. Okay? In other words, he's half standing up and half stooping down. All right? Now, here's the next passage. And with thick darkness under his feet. Under his feet. Now, this shouldn't be too hard to understand. If darkness is under your feet, what's above your feet? Light. That's going to be where he keys off here. Okay? But at this point, he's saying nothing. At this point in the psalm, God's not saying anything either. There's stuff happening. But he's doing something, bowing the heavens, coming down. This is something he's doing. The darkness is under his feet. Okay? Darkness is under his feet here too. And he's silent. All right? And then they persist in attacking, trying to trap him to say something. So he straightens up. You got that? So here we got verse 10. He rode upon a cherub and flew. He sped upon the wings of the wind. The idea of quick deliverance is in view. You know, even using the angels. God doesn't actually need an angel to travel. I hope you know that. The idea is that you know, it's another anthropopathism. Okay? He's straightened up. He's standing up now. This is a play on both this here and this here, I have to get a little technical, is a play on the Hebrew word kum, which means to rise up, to stand for, to vindicate. In other words, you're standing up for somebody. You're standing up to defend somebody else. All right? So now he's straightening up here, and here he's riding. He's coming to deliver. In other words, you know, when you ride, you have to stand up to get on whatever the vehicle is. And here it's depicted as a cherub, okay? Sped on the wings of the wind, okay? Well, obviously, you know, you could be sitting and you could be standing, but in order to be in either position to start to ride, you have to stand up first, all right? So he's standing up to defend, all right? Now, here's where I got to spend some time because there's a mistranslation here. Verse 11, and I cover this in the Word doc, is mistranslated. In English here it says, he made darkness his hiding place. Now, if you got half a brain and you read that, and this is what kind of keyed me into this whole psalm, really. I'm like, what? God doesn't make darkness his hiding place. God doesn't hide. God isn't the God of darkness. He's the God of light. We just saw that the darkness is under his feet. Okay? It's under his feet. So that immediately, when I first saw this a couple of days ago, I'm like, I got to check this translation. Something's wrong. God doesn't make darkness his hiding place. Well, sure enough, the word for darkness in both Hebrew and Greek is the subject of the verb. It's the darkness creating, trying to hide God. So this should read, and you could translate it in various ways. You can say darkness tried to hide him, tried to create hiding places around him, tried to surround him, Darkness tried to surround him. Okay? And then it says darkness of waters, thick clouds of the skies. The word thick is not in the text. Somebody stuck that in there. I don't know why they wanted to do that. Okay? It's not he made darkness, but darkness tried to hide him, tried to surround him. Darkness of waters. Waters means doctrines. Okay? Clouds of the skies. Clouds often refers to people. People as witnesses when it's in the plural. Okay? So the devil has his own witnesses. The devil has his own doctrines. And darkness, of course, is the personification of the devil. The devil tried to make hiding places. The devil tried to surround God with darkness so we couldn't see him. That's what this is saying. This is going to be the theme of John 8. Christ is going to be alerting them to the fact that they are playing, the Pharisees and the scribes are playing the role of the devil as darkness trying to hide God. That's going to be the theme of John 8. Sorry, I got some barking dogs next door. Okay, so the theme of John 8 is the scribes and the Pharisees being sons of the devil, which of course you can tell from the text, playing the game of trying to hide Christ's deity, trying to deflect attention from the fact that he's saying he's God. That's why he says it so much. Okay? And the Word doc covers this in more organized fashion. But I'm just right now trying to show you how we fingerprint the fact that what he's saying in John 8 is based on the outline of Psalm 18 right here. So we've tracked it so far, and now we're at this, we've fixed the translation here. Darkness tries to hide God, tries to create hiding, surrounding God with hiding places. Darkness of waters. Waters means doctrines. Okay? Clouds of the skies, that means witnesses. That's usually the metaphor. It could mean other things too. But that's a common metaphor, pan Bible that you can do a word search on and see it yourself, like in the book of Hebrews. Okay? And we all know that darkness is a metaphor for the devil. Okay? Now, that's the key to verse 11, is what keys you into the whole import of the chapter. Obviously, the scribes are representing the forces of darkness. Obviously, they're trying to fight with Christ. Obviously, they're trying to deny him as Messiah. And to be Messiah, you have to be God-man. The whole definition of Messiah in the Old Testament means God-man. That's Daniel 7:13. Period. There's no other definition of Son of Man but that one. The other words that we have in English translated as Son of Man is a different term in the Greek. Okay? And in the Hebrew, in particular in the Hebrew. Because only in Daniel 17 is Enosh used. Okay? So there you have that parallel going on. Again, he bows down to write to the ground. When he's doing it the second time, he's trying to remind them. Okay? He's trying to remind them of Psalm 18. Because what happens in Psalm 18? Okay? The earth shakes. That's judgment right here. This is all judgment. Okay? He bowed the heavens also. Alright? The word thick darkness is not really there. It's just darkness under his feet. Okay. So, but they're not getting it, okay? But he knows where he's going with this. He knows what he's going to say next. So he's portraying it to them so they'll remember afterwards. Well, at this point, all they're thinking of is that, well, if I'm really honest with myself, I can't say I never sinned. So they drop their stones gradually until he and the woman are alone. And again, look at this. He straightens up. See, he straightens up and he straightens up. Alright? That's the same thing as him riding on the cherub to rescue. See? And this is the darkness trying to defeat him right here. But from the brightness before him, the clouds, again, the word thick is not there. I don't know why they keep putting it there. Hailstones, that's you see that in Revelation 2. Oh, the dogs are barking. The hailstones and coals of fire. That's the stuff that comes out of heaven, the judgment pronouncement of heaven. See, here's the light again. Light proceeding in front of him. The word before is an opion, and it has two connotations. First, that it's physically in front of, but the other idea is that it's going before. Okay, the light is proceeding in advance of him because he is light. And then through that passes his witnesses, his hailstones, and coals of fire, which is the righteous judgment the light judges also. All right? That's all standing up. See, if it's going before him, it means he's standing up. And all this is passing through the darkness. The darkness can't defeat the brightness before him, and his own clouds, his own hailstones, his own coals of fire. Okay, the witnesses, the judgment pronouncements, the prophecies, all that is going through the darkness. See, the darkness is trying to hide him here in verse 11, but as he stands up and moves forward, it's penetrating this. So the Lord thundered in the heavens, the Most High, uttered his voice, hailstones and coals of fire. Okay, now look. Straightening up, he says, where are your accusers? See, because he's penetrated the darkness. They've left. Only the brightness is standing there now. Thundering in the heavens, uttering his voice, Jesus said to her. Uttering his voice, Jesus said to her. What, nobody's to condemn you? Yeah, because what is this? He's coming to deliver the person who called on the Lord right back here. And now God is coming down to deliver. He sent out his arrows, he scattered them. Lightning, hello, lightning, light again, third reference. And he routed them. Routed who? The enemies. They're gone. Well, where are they? They're gone. You see the parallel? You see how it's tracking in order? Okay? And then there's another reference here in Psalm 19, which is going back to the Exodus. Then the channels of water appear. That's the wall of water where Israel passes through dry shod on the Reed Sea. In Hebrew, it's called the Reed Sea. The Greeks changed the name to Red Sea because Pharaoh died there. That's a Greek invention to call it the Red Sea. It goes all the way back to Herodotus and prior. Okay, that's what they call it, the Red Sea, the Erythraean Sea. Erythraean is the transliteration of red. Okay, red for blood. Channels of water appeared. That's the wall of water while Israel goes dry shod. Foundations of the world were laid bare. That means the ground. Okay, at your rebuke, at the blast of the breath of your nostrils. Okay, well, that all just happened right here. They're all gone. He's defeated his enemies. They left. There's nobody there. See? No one, Lord. The only one there is the Lord. Okay? So in her mind, she's thinking, he sent from on high, he took me. He drew me out of many waters, many doctrines. He delivered me from my strong enemy and from those who hated me, for they were too mighty for me. That's what's just happened to her, and that's what's just happened to him. He too, we forget that, we think, well, because Christ isn't a sinner, that he didn't have any problems. That's not true. His problems were actually worse because he wasn't a sinner. He had enemies, he had reasons, he had hunger, thirst, fear, all those things hit him. He too had to be saved from his enemies. See, he had to be saved by God too, but the salvation for him wasn't from sin. The salvation was from death. The salvation was from his enemies. The salvation was from, trial and tribulation. He went through it, but he also was delivered out of it. You see? Many kinds of salvation. And so both of them are saying, well, no one, Lord, I've been delivered. He sent, this is going to be key in the next couple of verses. He sent from on high. He took me. He drew me out of many waters. Drew me out of many waters is a reference to Moses. The word Moses means drawn out of the water. It's an Egyptian term for being drawn out of the water as a gift from Isis. Moses isn't originally a Hebrew word. Okay? That his name was given to him by the, Hatshepsut. So all of this is talking about being delivered in the Exodus. They were surrounded by waters. They were surrounded by troops. Same parallel. You see? So we've seen lightning. We've seen being encompassed. Okay? Where was that? Brightness past. We've seen, here, this is the light, the thundering and the lightning, judgment. We've seen all that. Lightning flashes. Okay? He delivered me from my enemy. I was the one who was surrounded. Israel was surrounded by her enemies. David was surrounded by his enemies. This is a psalm of victory. He's been delivered. He rescued me. Okay? I've been delivered. That's where this right-hand side is. Okay? Now, that takes you through verse 19. You see that? Okay, so now, this is another occasion. Who knows how close it is to the event of the woman, him and the woman being alone. Now he's in a crowd again. This is sometime later. Could be the same day, several weeks away, whatever. John is pairing up the two events because of the theme of it. And verse 12, I am the light. All right, well, brightness. Defeating the darkness that tried to hide him. That's verse 11. The brightness shines through his own witnesses, his own, judgment prophecies and all that, pierce the darkness with fire. Thunder in the heavens, hailstones, coals of fire, arrows, lightning flashes in abundance, and routed them. So he's just finished, this parallel has already gone through verse 19. But this is another occasion. All right? And this occasion is still about the content of Psalm 19. Okay? Just to make sure I'm copying. So when he says, I am the light, he's starting to talk back to, you see light there in yellow and red. He's talking back to darkness at his feet. That's the first reference to light. I guess you could say direct reference to light in Psalm 18. Okay? Is that in verse 9, he bowed the heavens, that's when he stooped down, came down, he's going to circle on this whole verse there, with the darkness under his feet. Again, I don't know where they're getting thick. Maybe it's the kind of darkness that it is, but I didn't look that up. But the darkness is under his feet, so he's light. You got that. So he says, I am the light of the world. Okay. We move over here to this part of the window. Okay, you can see the whole thing here. Look on the right-hand side. Those are 39 verses where I searched on the word light in the Psalms to see if there was any other psalm, because I knew he was referring to the Psalms. Was there any other psalm that had the same fingerprint as the fingerprint he was establishing in John 8? And, you're more than welcome to search on the word light and see if you can find any kind of parallel that's referencing all these same things in this same order. I couldn't find anything but Psalm 18. Okay? And like I said, if you got Bible software like this is a really easy search to do. It took me maybe an hour to read all of the psalm references to light. Okay? So as you can see at this point, by the time we get to the point where he says he's light, we've already seen some ties in order, parallels between Psalm 18 and John 8. Now, obviously, other Bible passages are in view when he says he's the light of the world. Because when we go back over here, okay, you can see on the right-hand side, sort of in the upper middle, you light my lamp. We're going to get to that. That's also Psalm 18. For you is the fountain of life. That's Psalm 36:9. In your light we see light. Okay, Psalm 37:6. He will bring forth your righteousness as the light and your judgment as noonday. So, I mean, there are other passages that tie to this, but if you were to go through each of those Psalms like I did, and you try to track the path of the discourse, you don't get the same parallel as you do with Psalm 18. It's going to keep on going, as I'm going to show you. But obviously those other verses are in view. So here we've got, I'm the light of the world. Now this, see, in English, if you didn't know what the theme of this was, hi, this is about stoning and adultery. I mean, you know that, but you don't, if you're not reading the whole chapter first, you don't get the flow. If you don't get the flow, you don't get the meaning. So you're going to be a sucker for those people who claim that these 11 verses don't belong in the Bible, because you're not reading it. And for them to make the claim it doesn't belong, they're not reading it either. Okay? Flat incompetence that they cover up because they got degrees. And you can hire somebody with a degree from the greatest of schools, and basically he'll just say whatever you want him to say if you pay him enough. And that's true in any profession. And it's much more true, of course, with religion. They just, whatever, they got to defend, they'll defend. It's a big ego thing, or it's a big I need the money thing, or it's a big power thing, or it's a big I'm afraid to go against the crowd thing. I don't know quite what it is. But having a degree here is not going to be any guarantee of integrity. Okay? It doesn't mean that you should hate the scholars. Don't be stupid. Okay? But it does mean you can't just treat them like they're God. Just because somebody's got initials after his name and he's respectable and he sounds nice doesn't mean he's telling you the truth. He could be incompetent or he could be a liar, and that's very frequent in scholarship, in every profession. I don't care if it's legal, accounting, religion especially. Politics we already know, all right? And religion is politics, pure and simple. That's why I hate it. I hate religion with all my heart and soul. Okay, I am the light seems to come from nowhere. If all you're doing is just mindlessly reading the words, it's like, well, what? Why is he suddenly saying this? Why, he could say 1,000 different things in verse 12 to say he's God. Why does he pick light? Why are those the words he uses? I don't know about you, but Bible's fuzzball. You have to pick it apart. It's deliberately fuzzball so that you will pick it apart. All right, so when I was going through this, I'm like, why does he bring this up? If you were to take any of these verses in this chapter and move them around in a different order, the text would still seem the same. But there's a reason why he's bringing this up first. What is it? These are the kinds of questions a pastor is supposed to slog through. It's really hard work to be a good pastor. Most pastors don't do that homework. Why is this here first? Why is this right after this verse? And that's the scholars who claim that these 11 verses don't belong. One of the reasons they make that claim is because this verse seems to come from out of nowhere. It's like, why doesn't this begin chapter 8? That's their argument. It seems like it's a non sequitur. Well, it's not a non sequitur if you realize that for the first 11 verses he was already covering through verse 19 of Psalm 18, which is exactly what he did for the woman. See, broad place? Well, the center of a town, the town center, is a pretty broad place. It's supposed to be a meeting place. It's supposed to hold a couple thousand people, or at least a couple hundred. It's big. Broad place really means, someplace safe. All right? Well, ding, ding, ding. There they are. In the center of town, nobody's there but them. All right? He rescued me. Yeah, and he himself was rescued from the scribes and the Pharisees who couldn't trap him, so they had to walk away. See, so you need to have these first 11 verses there to know why verse 12 is what it is. And why is that? Because he's going to go right back to this verse. He's going back to verse 9. He is not going back to verse 1. Why? Why is he going back to verse 9? Because this has already happened. That's why verses 1 through 11 are so important. This has already happened. He's there. He's talked to her. Smoke went up by his nostrils, kindled by it. He already bowed the heavens, and the thick darkness is under his feet. In other words, he won. He came. That's the whole point of John 8. He came. He came from heaven. Okay, but in the order of this psalm, he picks up on the fact that he's light. The darkness is under his feet. It's under his control. It's under his subjugation. He triumphs over darkness, which is, of course, what verse 11 is like explanatory, trying to say, well, darkness tried to hide him, but because he's light, it didn't succeed. He thundered, hailstorm, coals of fire, delivered and routed them. Okay? In any kind of discourse, especially Greek or Hebrew, when you got a paragraph like this, okay, that's one paragraph, and then verses 15 through 19 are second paragraphs because it's the second analogy, saying the same thing, only this analogy is to the Exodus. This here is a paragraph. This here is a second analogy to the Exodus. All right? In any kind of discourse, when you already made your points and you want to reference the whole section again, you go back to the first point you made, which is, hi, I came down and I'm light. He's coming in at the end of the verse to stress he's light, because he's already there. He doesn't have to say I came down, because he's already here. But what he's going to stress is the fact that he's light and the darkness is in subjection to him, which he just proved, or had proved on this other occasion that was related, because everybody left and he's by himself with her. Okay, that's why it's relevant that verse 12 talks about light and that it's the next thing in order. Because he's already there, he's proven himself light, and there he is. So he's picking up at this point in Psalm 18. Okay? This is all explanatory. Okay, see, because he's already defeated the darkness here. And in Hebrew, you first state the result, and then you go back and explain how it got there. All right? So that's why he's referencing this section. When in verse 12 he says, I'm the light of the world. He who follows me, see, look at this, will not walk in darkness. See? Darkness is under his feet. Well, if darkness is under your feet, you're not walking in it. You're walking in light. The darkness is under your feet. Got it? See how cute that is? And you have the light of life. Now, again, there's like 39 other passages that talk about God as light. But that's the first emphasis in this chapter where he says, I'm God. I'm the light of the world. I'm the light of life. If you follow me, you have the light of life. That means, hello, I'm God. Only God is light. That's what these 39 verses all say. Only God is light. Only God's word is light. If you listen to God, if you follow God, you will have light in your life. You will have the light of life. You'll be illuminated inside. You'll be happy inside. Darkness will be under your feet because it's under his. You see that parallel? Okay. I'm not sure that the Pharisees yet picked up on the fact that he's using Psalm 18 at this point. But they don't have a reply. Of course, they're back, so this is a separate occasion. And they say, well, you're just talking about yourself. Testimony of one witness, therefore your testimony is not true. Okay, that's the rejoinder. And he says, even if I were just talking about myself and there was nobody else, my testimony is true because, now get this, for I know where I came from and where I'm going, but you don't know. Now, think about this. Pretend you're right there. You just heard this human say he's the light of the world. Anyone following me will not walk in darkness but have the light of life. That can only mean he's claiming to be God. And since nobody's seen God, nobody knows where he's going. Okay, that was John 3. You don't know where the Spirit's going, but you know where God came from. And since he's referencing this part of Psalm 18, the first half says what? He bowed the heavens and what? Came down. Came down from where? Came down from heaven. With what? The darkness under his feet. See, he's bringing up this part of the verse, waiting for them to catch on. I'm the light. Because they didn't catch on, he's now going back to the first part of the verse. I bowed the heavens and I came down. You don't know where I came from. I know, but you don't know. See, you don't know God. You don't know where God comes from. I mean, theoretically, and you know from doctrine that he comes from heaven. But they don't know that for themselves. They didn't see him there. That's the point he's making. I know where I came from because I was there. Okay, well, he can only be talking about himself as God due to this. So where did he come from? He's saying he came from heaven. But he's not using the word heaven. Why is he not using the word heaven? Because he's referencing this verse which they're not catching on to yet. If I'm God, even if you didn't know that verse on the left-hand side, if I'm God and I'm light, then where did I come from? Heaven. Where am I going? Heaven. That's Deuteronomy 30. That was their complaint. Well, how are we going to be perfect and obey this law? Can we go up to heaven? No. But he's saying he came from heaven. He's not using the word heaven. He doesn't have to. He's the light of life. He's God. I know where I came from and where I'm going. Yeah. And he's trying to tell them, hello, see, look at this verse. Okay? Then to give them another hint that he's talking about Psalm 18, he says, you judge according to the flesh. I am not judging anyone. Yeah, because verse 10 says he rode on a cherub and flew with the wings of the wind. What is he doing? He's riding to rescue, not to judge. He's riding to rescue the believer, not to judge. He's riding to rescue. The judge part was like, yeah, I should judge. I am a judge. But that's not what he's doing. He's bowing the heavens and coming down with the darkness under his feet. He's sped on the wind. Why? Because he's coming to rescue. The darkness is trying to hide him as he's coming down. But the brightness of him and his word and the witnesses pierces through the darkness. He thunders in the heavens. He's uttering his voice. That's what he's doing right here. Uttering his voice. And yeah, there are hailstones and coals of fire, meaning he has the right of judgment. But that's not what he's doing. He's coming to deliver, to save. And that's why he says, you're judging according to the flesh. I'm not judging anybody. Yeah, because he's the Savior. This is a way of him saying, I'm not judging anyone because I'm saving. He's trying to point their attention to here. Because why? Because they're acting like here. Again, remember, darkness is the subject of the verb, not the object. Darkness is making a hiding place, trying to hide Christ, trying to hide God, surrounding him with, the canopy is not the right word, just surrounding him with darkness. Darkness of doctrines, darkness of witnesses. Okay? Now, because this and this are judgment functions, judgment offices, see? That's a judgment office. That's a judgment office. So he has to come up with a clause next to reference that part of it. But even if I do judge, my judgment is true. If his judgment is true, he's God. Only God's judgment is true. Okay? See, and these are references to God the judge coming down to rescue, not to judge the believer, but he's got the office of judge, and so all that's being referenced right here. All those are judgment offices. You notice that it's saying he uttered his voice, there's hailstones and coals of fire. It's not saying that those hailstones and coals of fire are hitting anybody. They're like trappings of office. They're emblems of office. He sent out his arrow. This is where he's actually, fighting them. But thundering in the heavens, uttering his voice, the hailstones themselves are just signs, emblems. They're not hitting anybody. So he's displaying the fact that he has the office of judgment. But even if I do judge, my judgment is true. Well, that means I'm God if my judgment is true. And to emphasize that, he next says, for I am not alone, but I and the Father who sent me. And this is really important. First of all, he's equating himself with Father when he says, I and the Father. Notice he's mentioning himself first. Now in Greek, that sometimes has the opposite meaning of English. In English, if you mention yourself first, it means you're putting yourself as preeminent. But in Greek, oftentimes you mention the thing that's more important last. Okay? But the word and means he's equating himself with Father. All right? My judgment is true, I'm God. See? I'm not judging anybody. You don't know where I come from. Hi, I'm God. That's why you don't know. He wants them to remember this. Okay, because he's going to reference it. He's going to close his point with that. I'm the light of the world. I'm God. Okay? My testimony is true because I know where I came from, but you don't. Because I have to be God. You don't know where God really comes from or goes. You know that he's from heaven, which they want him to say that word, but he's not saying it yet. I'm not judging. I'm the Savior. Well, then I have to be God. But even if I do judge, my judgment is true. Well, if my judgment is true, I have to be God. Excuse me. For I am not alone, but I and the Father. I first and the Father. Another statement, I'm God. He's equating himself with God the Father. Bald as it gets. Okay, then we have the next word, sent. I spent a lot of time in this in Word doc, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time over here. But the purpose of mentioning sent here is, again, to refer them back to this. Okay? In this case, he's sending himself. He's coming down. All right? And then all this is going on. That's him sending. He sent out his arrows. This here in Greek is ex apostello. This word here, I got to get in the Greek a little bit, is pempo. Pempo means to send somebody on an errand. Okay, it could be a high-born person, a low-born person. It doesn't tell you anything really about the office of the person you send. But this, apostello, means that the person is like an ambassador, an emissary. He's sending out his arrows as emissaries. Now, there are other uses too, but the origin of the word apostello means somebody who's appointed as an emissary, a representative of the person who's doing the sending. All right? He's not using that word here. The Old Testament does use that word here. So he's saying he is sent like an arrow. Or he will end up saying that by verse 42, where he uses apostello for the first time. But he is sent. See? He bows the heavens and comes down. He's sending himself. He rode on a cherub and flew. He's sending himself. Okay, the darkness tried to stop him. Okay? But he pierces the darkness, and he's sending thunder, and he's coming down. He's sending himself, and he sends out arrows. You see? That's what he's trying to get them to understand. Hi, take a look at this. Take a look at this. I want you to focus on this passage.